and begin. Pioneer, you're the only one here so far. If anybody else comes in late, I'll let them in. I want to thank you for coming tonight. The tips that I have for you, I have to screen share for. So this is something that I wanted to let you guys know that when I was in my bar review class, our school actually had a whole class developed from September until February, um, right before we graduated. And so in that class, they gave us tips on what we should do. And this is one of the tips that we were given was if you have a bar review program, um, and somebody's trying to get in the room, so hold on a second so I could see why I can't seem to be getting them in. Well, there it is. Nope. Okay, so I can't seem to figure out, maybe they left the room. So basically, what I have here is I used bar passers my first time around. This was in 2015. And one of our professors told us to actually copy the table of contents from each one of our bar review books for the subjects. And the reason was she wanted us to copy them and then write out our rules. So, like for standing, what's the rule? You know, that a person has to have some kind of cognizable injury and it's caused by the defendant, one that the courts can redress. And with redress, they have to have jurisdiction. So I would have to write that rule out right on the copy of the table of contents. And she told us to go down the page and just write all the rules that we knew. And that way we already know the rules. We don't have to do it again. Then we only have to know the rules we don't know. And from that standpoint, you could make rule statement drills, which means that, you know, like for uh, the rule of standing, that's just one person standing. You still have third party standing. And so they've got to have some kind of connection. But anyways, so any rule that I didn't know, that's what I did next was I made sure and I learned those rules that I didn't know. And whether you do flashcards or you do rule statement drills, that's what I did to learn the rules. Because if you don't know the rules and you get a question, like I'm going to share with you now, a constitutional law question, um, if you don't know the rules, you can't possibly pass it. And so basically, what I would do then after I've learned my rules on con law is I would go ahead and try to do an essay. And what I mean by trying to do an essay is I would set my computer up like this to do it online. And that's what Bar Exam Doctor has, a program that totally does it. And so I am totally for it because when I did Bar Exam Doctor, he increased my scores by over 100 points. And I came within, I'm not kidding you, 7 points of passing the first time I used his program. I used his program twice and I did not, I still had to, the second time that I used his program, I failed by 33 points. And so the third time, I pretty much knew what I needed to do. I needed to tailor my answers. They needed to be better. And I'm going to show you what I would do in a situation like this essay here is, this is a constitutional law essay. And again, I tell everybody, read, read, read. Read all the facts all the way through. You don't want to start writing until you've read all the facts and you've read it one time at least. And then you might even want to read it twice before you start with your issue spotting. So this is a really short one. It's about a law that state X had passed. And there's three plaintiffs, Alice, Bob, and Mac. and it's a free speech one. And the reason I chose this is because I'm horrible at free speech. And so I'm going to show you what the first thing that you would do on something like this is you need to figure out what the question says here. How should the appellate court decide on the 3 appeals and why? It's a statute. They were begging. They were begging in different places. Alice was begging on a sidewalk. Bob was begging on a platform. And Mac was begging in the lobby of a private law firm. So the first thing that you would have to do is you would have to set up your essay to answer a First Amendment free speech fact pattern. And so the first thing that I would do would, you have to know your First Amendment. So again, you want to put down that you've got your First Amendment. That's your issue. What's the rule? What's the analysis? What's the conclusion? The second thing that you're going to need to do is with the First Amendment, you've got state action. You also have standing. Okay, but prior to that, how does the First Amendment apply to the states? Through the 14th. So you have to put that down. So, and again, it's the rule, the A, and the C. And so you're going to be doing this all the way down the page. And the reason that I'm doing this prior to answering it for Alice, Bob, and Mac is because after you get all this stuff done, then you can go and just quickly answer each individual's thing. So then you've got your free speech. Well, this is free speech on 2 different levels. First of all, it's on begging, and it's is begging content or is it actual speech, right? Or conduct. So you've got 2 different areas there that you have to do. Well, with free speech that is word, you have to analyze content based versus non-content based. So again, it's the rule, the A, the C, and then the non-content and the rule A and C. Whoops, and I'm put an X there, sorry. And then you also have with free speech, you've got the conduct, the begging. What if they weren't even talking? What if they just were holding a cup? Which I think that's what it's about. So you've got conduct. So then again, the rule, the A and the C. And then last but not least, after you've analyzed those, then you have to basically talk about strict scrutiny for content based. And so you have the rule, the A, whoops, and the C. What else? It talks about in here, it says something about section 4 was found to not be void for vagueness. Well, vagueness has another part, overbroad. So you need to do that one as well. You have to analyze that. What am I forgetting here? Your forums is the very last thing after that. Okay. And this is where it gets into it. So this is where I would have gone Alice and I would have put the public forum. And a public forum is strict scrutiny. Sidewalks are public forums. So the rule is that in a public forum, basically the state can violate it only if they meet the strict scrutiny clause. So that's Alice. And then, you could actually put the standing here if you wanted, or you could just say standing C above, and she qualifies because she was injured, she was arrested. And then the next guy, Bob, and the same thing, he was a semi-public forum. He was on a platform where people ride the trains. So the reason why I say that that's a semi-public forum is because it's not a traditional, quote, free speech place, like in a park, in a sidewalk. So, and believe it or not, strict scrutiny still applies to that, I believe. Okay, so you've got Bob, and then the last guy, Mac, he's in a building. Okay, so the only thing that you need to discuss about that is that it's a private forum, and is that a traditional place? So in other words, there are certain places like in a mall or something like that where they might say that's considered a public forum, so maybe you get away with that. Airports, um, would be a semi-public forum. But anyways, you see what I'm saying as far as how you would actually just go down the page and analyze your question. And you'll notice that I've got three of three pages already. And that was done in a matter of a few minutes. I didn't do that much, but that's what you want to do to set it up to answer a question. And if you know all of these rules, you know, the First Amendment, it basically guarantees our right against government control of our speech. But you can actually get one of these like little books. I don't know if you could see my little book, but this is the Independence Declaration of Independence and Constitution. You guys should have this on your desk. I have a electronic copy if you would like that. I'll send it to you. So this was from the July 2004 bar exam, and I want to share one last thing with you before I turn it over to Todd, and that is I want you to realize that the answers that are after it are not model answers. They are released answers. That means that they got enough points. Are they good answers? Well, yes, they passed them, but that doesn't mean that they're completely complete or that they've, you know, actually put in all the issues that need to be discussed. Okay, every answer is different. That's one of the reasons why I so am for, like, say, bar exam doctor, where they have actual past graders grade essays in subject matters that you have difficulty in, because you're going to learn more from that grader about that subject matter of what you've missed than anything else. And then you can start realizing the patterns, like what I did here for my outline, that you have to answer all of this stuff. And so you need to know all these rules. So that's pretty much it for me. The other thing that I wanted to share, which I will share when Todd is talking, is something that he provided for me, which was a diagram that had all of the subjects. So Todd, you go ahead and take it over, and thank you, everyone.
Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Todd. I'm the founder of barexamdoctor.com. We obviously help Jennifer pass the bar exam. We help lots of other students pass the bar exam. One of our things that our big thing is that basically you do the full PT and or essay completely online on our website, just like the bar exam is now. We created the system over about 10 years ago. We've probably have about 10,000 students exams of essays and PTs over the years submitted into the database, where we have this feature where after you do an essay or a PT, you can see the other students' answers with the feedback on them to learn from the experience. As Jennifer has pointed out, it's not just about a lawyer grading your exam, but when I hired these different lawyers to grade exams, I looked for the best I could find. And one of our graders is an actual California bar exam grader herself. So that means that she had to, graded thousands. She's one of those people where, you hear stories about where they had to grade thousands in a very short period of time or got paid very little. That's this kind of scenario. And these people, usually when the time they're done grading, they're drained. They don't want to do any more grading anymore. Well, we were lucky to get her on board years ago and to have her on staff to grade exams. So it's important to, when you get exams graded, you grade it by a good, credible person. Another one of our graders, who's also a really good tutor that was licensed in other states, he has this educational background. And I think it's also important to point out that it's not just saying this is what you did wrong, because look, the truth is, the reality is, you yourself could go download an exam, look at the answer yourself, and not have any issues and just say, I'm good, right? But if it was that simple, then no one would ever use a bar review program and no one ever have a tutor, and that would be that. So the thing is, you really want a credible person and someone who can have that ability to explain to you what you're doing wrong, to explain to you how to improve, to explain to you that this is the way to get to where you need to be. And one of our graders who has a very strong educational background, who's a lawyer in other states, who I do YouTube videos now with and TikTok and stuff, he's really a nice, smart, honest, easygoing guy. And that's also a thing. What's interesting is a lot of these tutors, they have really big egos, and it's like you do it their way or you're wrong, and that's that. And the students walk out and then they do everything they said, they don't pass, and then they think that everything they did before was wrong. And it's not the way to improve your writing isn't just go and steal someone else's formula and copy it from A to Z. It's not really like that. This is a process. It's a marathon. And so you have to learn little bits of different places to improve your writing. As Jennifer pointed out, she used the bar passer material. She used our material. She used the past bar exam material. She probably did her own materials. It's a combination of all different things that helps you improve on your writing. Because at the end of the day, it's still you, okay? If you just start and you start just throwing up all this stuff that you memorized from another page of a writing book, and there are a few out there, then you're probably not going to do so great because you didn't really understand how you came about with that formula. You just copied and said, okay, this is the way it is. This is not multi-state. This is not the MBE here. This isn't just choose A, B, C, and D. They're looking for the way you analyze, the way you think through scenarios, okay? So like, for example, on the con law question she brought out earlier this evening, you can see that she brought out and started laying out like an element-driven answer, like everyone else should do. But in con law, there's a lot of analysis. They're looking for how you are coming up with the conclusion, how you eventually conclude of one or the other on the standard of what it applies to a content-based speech or on the different types of scrutiny. So it's important to do a lot of analyzing on con law. It's different than, like, let's say evidence, where you're just literally spitting out the rule statement. You're basically having one or two arguments and you're concluding and you're moving on to the next one because it's a racehorse exam. So it's important to understand too what kind of exam it is. On con law, you're focusing more on your analysis. So it's important to say, okay, so your con law answer might be longer paragraphs versus your evidence question might have a million little short sentences, and that's okay. And as she's pointing out too, on the model answer A and B, these are not 100% scored and then an 80% score answer. These are just answers that they pick out of thousands of exams that they think this is what you should look at if you're trying to figure out what is a good score and what's a pretty good score, what a good A called A, and then the other one they call is B. But it's not really like, oh, they didn't get A, B, C, D through Z on A answer, so they really should get they should barely have passed. No, they wrote enough for the bar examiners to feel like this is a good answer. And that's the other funny thing is when you're writing these answers, there may be so many issues that you're just not going to be able to catch them all. Okay, but for the ones you do catch, if you do a good analysis and you write it properly with the IRAC formula, that's probably going to get you there, right? It's when you just throw a little bit of every other issue out there and every little thing you think you touch on every single thing, that's never always a good way, we find, right? We find it's better to pick the good ones and do your really good job on those ones. And the ones that are just not as strong, you don't have much to talk about, yes, you can touch on them, but don't spend too much time on them, right? Because look, if you look at enough answers, enough essays and PTs, you have an idea what they're looking for, right? This is a thing they've been doing for years and years. There's enough to look at in evidence and con law and torts and contracts and all the other subjects to have an idea of what they are looking for, right? If you haven't looked at enough answers, by the time you get to the bar exam, then you didn't prepare properly, right? Because, and I'm not saying write a million, I'm saying just look at them. So what we do on our website is we sort by subject and by subtopic. So that way, if you're like, I want to see a bunch of breach of contract questions, you go to the contracts, you choose breach of contract, and you'll see. If there are not a million in our database, it's because the bar examiners don't test it very often, and that's okay. And what I also found is that also probably means you probably struggle with that area because they don't practice. You probably haven't practiced enough. You probably didn't teach it very much in the bar reviews, and it's just, that's okay. And you're like everybody else out there. It's okay. The key is to stay calm. One of the interesting things that we found over years ago was anxiety, right? The anxiety is a kind of funny thing that you sometimes don't even realize you have it till you take the freaking test, or you were in law school and you were taking a test. I can tell you stories where we have students that didn't know they had anxiety till they started law school and or the bar exam. Again, same thing. You thought you were fine. You take a bunch of law school exams and then you get the bar exam. And now you have this weird, like freaking out moment in your head and you're looking around and you're just like, it's all you. Yes. And you can't get past it. So one of the things we did years ago is we brought on a staff member who was a hypnotherapist, and we made a series of CDs that we give out to our students to help calm their stress. There's a series we made for basically before the bar exam to basically listen on a nightly basis to stay calm and to focus on key things. And then there's a series that we made for her that is during the bar exam on those key dates. And then there's a series that we made which is post bar exam to deal with the stress of waiting and worrying, right? Because in anxiety world, it's a lot of it is in your head, but at the same time, if you can't get past it, then you're basically the test will eat you alive, right? So it's important. And some of the anxiety is also just acknowledging you have it and then seeing what's causing it, right? So sometimes it could be as simple as saying you're not prepared and it's eating you alive thinking you're not prepared. And you can just, if you acknowledge it, maybe you can sit down and go through the materials and say, yes, you are prepared. Yes, you can handle this test. Or is it another thing? Is it a thing that maybe it's as simple as stupid as, but like, are you really hungry? And did you eat the right foods for that day? The brain foods and other key things. It's the funniest things. Anxiety is a weird thing. It's like, it's one of those movies where you see where basically they have the person's fears and that's like the horror. It's like everyone is unique in their own fears. And so in the anxiety world, it's important to acknowledge what they are so you can attack them and not have to deal with them at the moment of the bar exam. Again, and if so what? It eats you alive on the bar exam, you acknowledge it, and you work through it for the next bar exam. Because unfortunately, a lot of people take the bar exam more than once. Jennifer has taken it a few times. So what? Again, what's the difference between someone who took it 10 times, 20 times, 3 times? Nothing. At the end of the day, it's about who you know and how your marketing is, and can you handle the law? That's all it is. Because there are many people who pass in the first time who are long past their law career at this point doing something else, and they just didn't want to do it. And then there are the people that, for whatever reason, it took them a few attempts, and now they're doing it and they love it, right? So sometimes maybe it's just for a reason. This is something that you're going to struggle through for your life for a little bit of time in your life, and then you're going to basically appreciate the actual legal career versus someone who just said, okay, so I went to college, I went to law school, I took the bar exam, I passed, okay, and there was really not much trouble there, and then they just didn't like it, and they were like, great, whatever. But when you practice and you take this a few times and you finally pass, there's this feeling, I know Jennifer has it. It's like you want to spread the word. You're like, I'm not in this to make $1 million. I'm not whatever. I just want to help people pass this test because I learned this is all it was. And I'm sure as she's shaking her head, it's a true thing. So that's why are we literally a third of the price of a typical bar review? Because that's when I created it years ago. I was like, I'm not charging $3,000. I'm not charging $4,000. Have I spent probably 10 times that making the program in terms of the programming on the back end of the website and going continue upgrading? Probably. But at the end of the day, it's about just helping people pass the bar exam. We have still maintained our same pricing for probably like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I think I raised it like $100. So nothing has changed. If anything, we're trying to encourage more people to just do the digital route. Don't do the route anymore, buying the books and ripping the pages for the PTs. I mean, one of the funny things is like, we even recommended it while going into the actual bar exam world. When you're taking the bar exam, was like when you get your book, the PT, to rip your pages and to use the paperclip method. I mean, I think it's not a bad thing. You take the red, you use the red for the memo, and use the green or yellow for the facts, and use the other for the library and all that. But now it's like it's not even a thought anymore. Now it's completely digital. Now our PTs were already digital, so there was nothing changing there. But it's just that the whole world now is literally more digital. I mean, the fact that even tutoring years ago, when you said to someone, is your tutoring in person? And you say no, they'd be like, okay, well, how the hell am I going to learn anything? Now look at this. It's like acceptable, right? It's acceptable to do basically Zoom. That's okay. It's acceptable to take the bar exam online. That's okay. All these things years ago were not acceptable. And so the interesting thing is that we find that basically with our tutoring, where it's Zoom, it's okay. Like we had students who really, really demanded a bar review that was down the street where they could physically step in a classroom, talk to people, do tutoring. And now it's like, as you can see, there was nothing different. The same exact thing is basically it's easier, right? It's more comfortable. You're sitting in your own environment, like the bar exam. It's a more comforting environment where like this stressful test and this experience is crazy enough. Like even when you pass the bar exam, become a lawyer. That's crazy enough right there.
Yes.
The law school, it's crazy. Why are these other things need to be crazy too? They don't, right? So if thank God for COVID, which sounds really bad, but for things that it's allowed us to basically become more acceptable and make it more easy in some sense. I think it's really just when someone says, should I take the bar exam the next time? And I say, as long as it's still digital, you take it as many times as you possibly can. I don't care if you still studied only for 6 weeks or 3 weeks or 2 days or whatever, as long as these are people who've already taken it a few times, they know the law. But the point is, they're debating about it because we don't know what holds in our future. It could be 2 years from now, they could go back to sitting in a classroom, a big room, the conference rooms or the convention centers. You'll probably be spaced out a ton, of course. But the point is, that we don't know how long this is going to last to sit in a comfortable environment and to just have not to the bar exam, but when you're practicing, you might have your dog or your cat under your feet. I mean, it's just unheard of. This is just crazy when you think of years ago, if someone had said the bar exam is going to be completely online and that's okay. And oh, by the way, they're going to lower the passing score too. Like, what the hell? What world are we in? I mean, it's one of those funny TikTok videos I should make with our graders. We're like, I'll have one me and I'll have the other grade. I'll say, hey, what's life going to be like in 2 years? And he's going to say, oh, first off, the bar exam is going to be online. And second, we're going to lower the pass score. We're going to lower it to 1390. It's okay. Everything will be okay. And I'm like, you're shitting me. There's no possible way the bar examiners are going to agree to that. And then they're going to allow it to go retroactive years back. No way, right? And look where we are now. Yep. Like it's opened up a lot of areas to basically allow people to now try it out if they wanted to try it, to be a lawyer who had the passing score above the 1390, where there were so many of our students that were the 1390 to below 1440. So many. I mean, it's like a given. You got to reread and you didn't pass? Of course not, right? It's just a given. It's a constant thing that these people who get reread. And look, they're smart enough to get to above the 1390. So they pretty much know how to write an exam. It's probably just something that just happened in one of the essays or one of the PTs where they just fell apart a little bit. And that's one of those fun things that's like you say, okay, so now all those people who have basically got above a 1390 have now become lawyers, and now they can move to the next stage of their life and say, okay, now it's time to actually practice law. And now the whole other world is going to open up, which is marketing and being a lawyer and learning all the other stuff, which they don't teach you in the bar exam. They don't, as Jennifer is shaking her head, there's a whole other world. I actually thought it was funny. I wanted to do a course years ago where it's like I wanted to have a bunch of lawyers basically take a course of how to be a law clerk. Because the funny thing is, it's really debilitating when you think that you pass the bar exam, you're a lawyer now, and you don't know how to do anything without a law clerk or without a paralegal. And I'll tell you, an internship for 2 months is not the real world, okay? When you worked in a law firm and you literally are there for a year or two and you're a paralegal, you're doing discovery, that's the real world. When you're doing prepping motions, that's the real world. When you're understanding how the difference is with fees and knowing the difference in percentage and the dealing with the insurance companies, this is a different world. So anyways, we're getting close to the time. And I want to thank you for letting me speak, and check us out at barexamdoctor.com. We're making weekly videos with one of my graders on TikTok, all over the place. So I look forward to speaking with you. If you have any questions, check us out. And my website again, barexamdoctor.com. Thank you.
So everyone, thank you, Todd, for coming, and everyone for coming tonight. I did want to say one thing. I am a lawyer, and I worked in a law firm for 16 years as a legal assistant. And when I got my license and I opened up my law practice, I thought, oh, I'm not going to have to do any more learning. Well, let me tell you, the first time that I went into the courts and I was actually litigating a matter, I thought I was going to throw up in a trash can right beside me. It is hard, and you have to know all of the court rules for your jurisdiction and state, and it's unbelievable because they change. I do bankruptcy, I do family law, I do estate planning, and these are some things that I had familiarity with prior to even becoming a lawyer, because I worked at a legal assistance for a business corporate group, I know all of Edgar. I know all about Section 16 and compliance in those areas for directors and officers. And I know about how public companies have to file quarterlies online and stuff like that. But I still had to go and learn a whole bunch of other stuff before I could say, oh, yeah, I could take your case. So it doesn't stop. The learning doesn't stop. Today I went to a CLE on patent and trademarks, and I don't do patent and trademarks, but like sharing things like bar exam doctors sheets or anything else. Um, I need to make sure that I do things right, legal. You know, we all do. Professional responsibility. I've already been set aside where I was working with one guy on a matter and he had a conflict with somebody else, and the person that he had a conflict wanted me to hire me for another matter. And I was like, well, wait a minute, you know, that might be a conflict of interest here, and I might have to get letters, but I declined to take it because it's just better to be safe than sorry. So all the stuff that you're learning right now for the bar exam, you will be applying it. I actually applied the mandate in California. Somebody said to me, "Is you know they have no right to tell us that we can't leave our homes." Well, yeah, they do. Because of the safety of the whole population, they had a right to shut us down for a little temporary time so that they would slow the spread so that the hospitals wouldn't be overwhelmed. Now, whether the science was there or not, that's a totally another issue. But there are things that you have to realize that compelling state interest was there. And when I explained that to somebody, they were like, wow, I hadn't even thought about that. Another person told me, they've never required masks anytime. Well, guess what? San Jose pandemic called the Spanish flu. A man was arrested for not wearing his mask before he got on the. It was like one of those electrical trolley cars. So you know, you have to realize that this test is important, and this is what you're going to spend your time on doing right now. And I think that you guys are going to do this. You just are going to study smarter by the tips that we give you. And I don't want any of you to feel like, you know, you have to take our word for it. You assess yourself what you need. And if you need a grader to grade your tests, then you better get a bar review program. And I stand by Bar Exam Doctor because if it wasn't for him, I would never have passed the bar exam. So with that, I'm closing. So you guys have a great evening. And I hope to see you next week. I plan on going over MBEs next week. And that's it. So you guys have a good night.